The order of the Public and Zoning and Building Committee. Roll call, please.
Alderman Artwoods.
Here.
Alderman Currielli.
Here.
Alderman Messina.
Here.
Alderman Sismarski.
Here.
Alderwoman Ames.
Here.
Alderman Artie Woods.
Here.
And Alderman Catalano.
Here, and we have a quorum. I'd like to make a motion to approve the March 13th, 2025 Planning and Zoning Committee meeting minutes.
Moved.
Any corrections to the minutes? If there are none, all in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. Next is report and recommendation, text amendment allowing the recycling center as a special use in the TCC district and special use recycling center at 344 Benhurst Drive. Director, you have a, go ahead, brief presentation.
Thank you, Chairman Catalano. So this evening, our first request, the petitioner is Juan Soto of Soto S. Metal, LLC, and he's represented here this evening by his real estate broker and his attorney. What he's requesting is a text amendment to allow a recycling center as a special use in the TCC overlay district, and a special use to allow a recycling center at 344 Benhurst Drive. You may be aware that they have an existing operation at 401 East Potter Street, so this proposal would involve them relocating out of that facility into an industrial park. This is the location of the proposed property, 344. It's on the south side of Benhurst Drive. You can see it here, a little bit better context of where the location is. It's east of Central Avenue and, of course, north of Foster. Over here on the left side of the map is Wooddale Road. And the property, as you can see, is zoned I-1, and the red striped lines indicate the TCC overlay district. The purple underneath is the industrial. So this property is about an acre in size, and it has a 20,000 square foot building on it with 41 parking spaces, and it was previously occupied by Damon Carbide Tool Company, a light manufacturing company. This is a picture of the outside of the building. And again, what they're requesting is to allow a recycling center as a special use in the overlay district. Now, recycling center is already permitted in the underlying I-1 district, that purple district, but it's not allowed in the TCC district. And in sitting down and talking with the petitioners about their operation and exactly what happens on the site, this definition for recycling center that is in our UDO is exactly what they're doing. So this is the use they are. And a recycling center is a facility that is not a junkyard, in which recoverable resources from used materials and products are purchased, collected, processed to a condition for reuse or temporarily stored to delivery or sale to others who will use the recovered resources to manufacture new products. So basically what they do is people drop off metal there, they put it in a condition where it can be shipped, and they keep it there for a while, and then they ship it out to others that actually use that metal to make recycled products out of it.
Alderman Messina, you had a question?
Yeah, comment, question.
Go ahead.
So, I've met with the petitioner before. I'm going to get to the mention, but yeah, I mean, just for context for everybody here, it's probably the #1 phone call I get from my constituents. Juan has been phenomenal when I call him, but literally it gets to a point where they have to go out and roll because of all the nails. Now, you said it's so nice. You make it sound like it's some recycling facility that's like, let's drop off your bottles. No, they're ripping off aluminum siding from a house. Somebody straps it to the back of their truck. Maybe it's a truck. Usually it's a car on the top of the hood. And they're dragging it down the street on Potter, and nails are falling everywhere, and people are getting flat tires, and I'm getting yelled at. I've gotten a flat tire as well from there. I'll say it again, petitioner Juan Soto has been phenomenal. This is something long overdue, where we've been asking, so staff has been great. We've said, Juan, please find a better spot. Directly across the street is all residential. So 2 years ago, Chief might know better, we actually came to you guys. the issues on that block, when it's rush hour, there are trucks lined up to drop off recycling. And I'm not, again, I'll reiterate it, we're not talking about like ABC siding. You're talking about random Joe Schmoes off the street that are just parking on the street, and you have 20 cars waiting, like a drive-through at McDonald's. It is mass chaos on that street. They probably never should have been allowed on Potter in the first street, and everybody across the street, residential, loses their mind. With that said, the petitioner, Juan Soto, has been very good at trying to keep up. It is impossible to keep up. So I'd like to make a motion to allow for the text amendment, which would allow a recycling center as a special use in the TCC district and a special use for recycling center at 344 Benoris Drive. That would be my motion.
Second, but you can continue.
Okay. So what is proposed is they would like to conduct all their activity indoors. And actually, this building is 20,000 square feet. Their entire site on Potter is 12,000 square feet. So you could fit that entire site in here and still have 8,000 additional square feet. So the idea is to conduct everything within the building, again, in a location that they're surrounded by industrial uses. The street by Norris is a little bit wider than Potter, and it's not across the street from residential, as Alderman Messina mentioned. And there was one more thing, but if it comes to me, I'll go back to it. But they are proposing to enclose the outdoor storage area with a solid 8-foot-high vinyl fence with a gate. That fence would actually go around the outside of this green area here. They would have to screen the garbage dumpster, but if it's located within this fence, then it doesn't need to be screened separately. They are proposing to stack up to 6 trucks on the site rather than in the street. Now, it's not prohibitive for them to stack into the street. We obviously don't want them to block the street, but they've agreed that this is how vehicles will stack as they're waiting to get in, so at least 6 of them will be off the street.
Alderman Correa, go ahead.
Just a quick question. Are we approving the text amendment or the proposed modifications?
So it's actually 2 actions. So the text amendment would allow the use as a special use, but then they have to request a special use at this location. And in conjunction with the special use, they're proposing to make these site improvements.
We're doing both of those?
It's
like
both.
this, okay. The fence doesn't meet our standards. The front of the fence?
Mm-hmm.
Do they need a special variance for that?
They actually are going to locate it. I know the highlighting is very general, but they are going to locate it in accordance with code requirements.
So
Back a little further.
At 40 feet, not 35
Yes.
feet in front of the building? Okay.
Yeah.
We will meet code requirements on everything.
Okay.
So, and no other physical changes are proposed. However, they are required to have 2 accessible spaces, so they're going to stripe their excess space for that will, in a way that will create 2 accessible spaces. And also, for landscaping, it has been suggested that they install 2 street trees, because if you look at their prior location, which is here, there really are no street trees. So the addition of those would be helpful, and of course, the Public Works Director would have to approve those trees, species, and locations. So the Community Development Commission did meet and recommend unanimous approval of this project. These are the conditions that they suggested. The first is a standard. It basically says you've got to comply with all these, documents. You've got to, the next couple are reminders. These are code requirements anyways, but we wanted to make sure we reinforced this by placing these conditions on the special use. So the next ones are, you need to do everything indoors. You can store some things outside, but you can't be doing activities outside. Business activities. Of course, you've got to screen all your outdoor storage. If you happen to relocate the dumpster outside the screened area, then you have to install a garbage enclosure. They will stripe the accessible parking spaces that are required. They'll plant the 2 street trees, and their stacking shall occur on the site as shown on the site plan. And again, it was a unanimous recommendation, and that concludes my presentation. But when we're done with questions from aldermen, the petitioner's representatives do have some comments.
Sure. Mayor, you got it?
Yeah, so when you're stacking along the side of the building, and I'm going to guess they're unloading in the back, there's going to be room for them to swing around because I'm hearing some outside storage, and they can only go 8 feet high. Those bundles can get high. I mean, I know they used to be higher. They brought them down across the street from those residents. I'm just curious, if they start stacking out there, they're still going to have room to maneuver trucks in the back.
Yeah, if you go to the podium, sir, please.
First of all, like she pointed out, our entire facility now, all the land and everything can fit in less than 3/4 of this building. So we now have all the room in the world to stack inside.
Sir, can I ask you to stand at the podium and state your name and business address for the
Jim
record?
Healy, H-E-A-L-Y, Goldstein, Skratsky, Russian, Nemec, and Hoff, on behalf of the petitioner. I'm his attorney. The idea here is to allow the stacking. I actually drew in those stacking cars. It can actually handle more like 8 to 10. I just drew in big ones because I had heard that they were trucks, but then I found out that they were mostly all pickup trucks. So it could actually hold up to 10. In reality, we're planning for even the future, they could actually have even more because this spot here is where the receiving will be. But if they needed to, and during rainy days and stuff like that, they will probably bring them inside the building because there's an exit right here. So they could literally loop the trucks and then go straight back out. These trucks here would just do a U-turn and come right back out here. So that there's plenty of room for the trucks to do their U-turn if they need to, or if we begin to start bringing them through the building, it would be through the building and then straight out the side exit of the property itself. But as for stacking, which again is the main thing here, we have probably more like 10. As you can see, the size of the car is there and the size of the spaces I drew for stacking, it's probably 3 for every 2.
Okay. Artie Woods, go ahead, Alderman.
In regards to the stacking, so to Alderman Messina's point, that at times there were maybe potentially up to 20 vehicles stacked in the current area. If this stack can be 6 to 10, so that potentially there's 10 vehicles out on the road, how long does each, I'm not super familiar with this industry, how long does each drop-off take?
A few minutes, but I don't think we've ever had 20. I think that was just a statement. The normal queue-ups at worst times were between 4 and 8. With a really bad time, might even go to 10. But we have the ability, as you can see, all I'm counting, if I may, I'm just counting stacking. Here would be almost 10. You then also have a couple more stacking abilities right there on the driveway before you even got to the street. And then again, we have the ability to bring them indoors and stack even more in there as they make a U-turn through the building. So it has the ability to not have any, which is why we had no problem with the final thing, which is that we would keep all the traffic onto the property and not allow people out on the streets to line up as they have been. So this is a great win-win. We get my client out of the residential area where it's causing problems and into a commercial area where it will not cause problems, and into a facility that is large enough to hold all of its needs now and well into the future.
And a quick follow-up.
Yes.
The semi-truck traffic, I think in our packet it said you anticipate about 3 to 4 a week. Is that about right?
A month.
A month, I'm sorry, a month, I meant, yes, sorry.
It's roughly 1 a week.
Okay.
Yeah, and there's, if I may, again.
Is that box trucks or semi-trucks?
Well, the truck that takes it out is a semi.
Okay.
Okay. A flat. That parks right here. There actually is a loading dock here. There's some other pictures that show that there's a loading dock there, and that's where it'll be loaded onto the semi in the palletized form, and then the semi just pulls out.
Thank you.
Alderman Woods.
Yeah, for the director, so we didn't really talk too much about the text amendment as much as we're talking about the special use, right? So we have to do the text, so I'm going to the motion. I heard approving the special use, but the motion should be to approve the text amendment and the special use. You're kind of assuming the text amendment's going through, because we're not really discussing the pros and cons of that. I'm not in that area, but I have driven by many times, and I didn't count 10, but at least a dozen cars out there many times, all over blocking traffic. So this will be a great improvement for the business, I'm sure, right, to get out of the smaller facility and over here. Looking at the stacking and thinking forward with traffic and how things are gonna work, are both those docks at grade? The front one, that's not a,
The front one is a loading dock.
Yep,
and then
can
Sir, you have to go to the podium, state your name, please.
I'm this real estate broker.
Give your full name.
Patrick Dwyer. I'm with NEI Hiffman. In the front of the building is the actual loading dock that's at dock height. And then the drive-in doors is what Jim was talking about, where you can physically go through the building and loop out of it to exit if it's stacked up too high. So
but the front one, didn't you just say it's not at grade?
this is dock level. This is where the semis come.
Right, so whatever, 3-4 feet.
Correct.
Whatever
Correct.
the number is. So what I'm saying is that a car and/or truck can't drive through the back door and drive out the front door
No, no.
unless he's gonna do a Dukes of Hazzard thing.
Very unpleasant,
Yeah, that would, so theoretically, that's not, you could go into the building and turn around, but
No, you could-
when,
Sorry.
go ahead.
You could turn.
There is an exit right here.
There's a drive-in door on the
there
side.
is another grade level door on this side.
So they'd be
No, they
driving
don't see
through,
it
so
in
They
the
now
can
that's-
drive through and then out.
and that would interrupt then the
That's okay.
stacking lane.
That would,
Right.
to be truthful, his goal upon village approval would be at some point to add another drive-in door along the right-hand side.
To be able, that's where I was going, that would be the better,
He wants to get this approved first, and then he's gonna apply for a drive-in door north of the garbage area, and then that would make that a lot easier, that loop.
plus the cars in the building with exhaust, you get into other.
And they could park at the bottom area too, if the stacking is too much where the black is.
Thank you.
Mayor?
Quick question. Sorry. So the text amendment, but if you're giving them the special use, do you need the text amendment? Is that
Yes.
the whole? You said it's allowed in the I-1, but this is TCC. So if you change the text, you change it for the whole, for everything?
Correct. So we can't grant them a special use for this use because of the overlay district.
Because of the
doesn't
overlay,
allow it.
that's-
So we have to add it into the overlay list of uses. They're different between the underlying zoning and the overlay district. It's allowed in the
Okay, it's-
underlying, but not the
I
overlay.
just wanted to verify. Okay, thank you.
Okay. Want to continue, sir?
No, that's really about it. The only comments we've heard is we want as much stacking as humanly possible on it, and we have the ability outside the building, and if we need to at this time, under the current configuration, also to put additional inside the building and doing loops. So we expect absolutely no traffic out, backed up onto being Norris.
By Norris.
By Norris.
Go ahead, Alderman Woods.
Yeah, so the other thing with the parking, how many parking spaces?
41 spaces.
He has 41. How many does he need?
40.
40? 40 plus 2? Or 40 total? 40 with the,
Counting,
ADA.
including the ADA.
okay, gotcha. Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions? So, Alderman Messina?
Addition of the text amendment by any means, but I know you guys have been very good, the building department, code enforcement. Yes, we're moving one, I wouldn't call it a problem, but we're moving a problem to where they need to be, right? Is someone going to still monitor that? Because at the end of the day, the same clientele is still going to go there. There's still going to be nails on the street. It's just going to be other people getting flat tires. So again, the petitioner has been great about doing that, but how do we, can we somehow formalize that? I mean, the petitioner's great, but if he sells it tomorrow, then we're back at it, right? With mandating and tickets and all that, but Is there any way to make sure that's formalized in case you go, Juan sells it for triple what he bought it for? How do we do that? So when we're all gone, this problem doesn't pop up again in the new location?
Sure. So certainly, we have code enforcement where we issue citations to go forward to administrative adjudication. But your question is more, how do we know they're going to be following these rules? And we will be doing inspections to make sure they install it properly. But generally, we would wait until we hear that they're not complying with codes. I can, for the first couple of months, have an inspector drive by and just make sure everything looks like it's, going well. And of course, our inspectors are up and down all of these streets, and will notice something, or if we get a complaint from anybody, we would certainly step in.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Alderman Woods?
Now, going back to the text amendment and opening the door, so to speak, are there any other things that we could add to minimize, I mean, not everybody's going to run there tomorrow and want to put a recycling center in, but certainly that would then become a use that some owners that might not be able to sell their smaller buildings to different companies that require, 20-foot, 24-foot roof ceiling height, would then maybe market to them? Is there any way that we can add some other restrictions to make this more a one-off than a opening the door to?
So the way we tried to control that was, rather than adding it as a permitted use, adding it as a special use. So generally, businesses that require a special use, it's a deterrent, because it takes, time, several months to go through the process. There's costs involved when maybe another community doesn't require a special use in a certain district. So that's the way we would attempt to control it. And also, all of these conditions that are listed, a bunch of them have code sections. And so all of those conditions or requirements would also apply to anybody else that would come in for a special use.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions? If there are no other questions, we have a motion, we have a second, and roll call, please.
Alderman Woods?
No.
Alderman Currielli?
Yes.
Alderman Messina?
Yes.
Alderman Sismarski? Alderwoman Ames?
Yes.
Alderman Artie Woods?
Yes.
Alderman Catalano?
Yes, motion carries. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Next is zoning variation to reduce the minimum rear yard setback for an accessory structure hot tub at 458 Dominion Drive.
Thank you, Chairman.
Go ahead.
I do have a presentation.
You got it.
So this is 458 Dominion Drive, and they are seeking a variation. The petitioner is here this evening and is seeking a variation for a hot tub. So this is where the property is located, kind of at the southeast corner of Dominion Drive, which is a private street that is kind of a circle. It goes in an entire circle. The subject unit is here. It's the most westerly unit of a 4-unit townhome building. This shows you a little bit better exactly where the property is in relation to kind of some of the surrounding area. So again, this is west of Addison Road and north of the Eisenhower 290. And so, and it's at this bottom corner, which is really surrounded by the golf course, the Maple Meadows Golf Course, that's owned by the Forest Preserve District. It's zoned RG, which is general residential. So this is where the back patio, where the hot tub will be located. The petitioner tried to outline with these paver bricks where the hot tub will be located for visual purposes, but basically it'll be located to the east of these sliding glass doors, and generally in front of this chimney. This is a really unique piece of property because the building itself, the townhome building, is only 5 feet from the property line. We don't see that very often. It doesn't meet the rear yard setback, but it's existing, non-conforming, legal. And this property here is owned by the Forest Preserve District, which is the golf course. So the patio is in this area here, and you can see with a 5-foot 6-inch patio by 6 foot 4 inches, there's really no way they could meet the 5-foot setback. I would like to mention that the patio itself does encroach slightly onto Forest Preserve District property. There is an agreement, an encroachment agreement, between the petitioners, not only the petitioner, but everybody along that building where patios encroach. Those patios are allowed to remain and be replaced, but they can't be expanded. The hot tub will entirely fit on the property. It won't encroach, I don't believe, and therefore no further permission from the Forest Preserve District is required. But this is one of those pieces of property that definitely complies with the unique circumstances in the variation standards. So the request is to reduce the minimum setback for an accessory structure from 5 feet to 0 feet. And the CDC did recommend approval of the request by a vote of 6-0. The petitioner is here this evening and would like to make some comments after the alderman asks questions.
And I'd like to make a motion for the zoning variation to approve the hot tub. That is my motion. Okay. If you want to go up and state your name. Oh, I'm sorry.
I just had a question.
I'm just sick. Go ahead.
I forget which order it's in, so if he wants to speak.
Go ahead.
The two things that I noticed, one, I'm fine with it. It looks totally fine to me, but the Forest Preserve is good with it too. They just don't want any drainage, excessive drainage on their property, so that seems to be, and I think you agreed with that. The second thing, I saw an anonymous resident had some concern with the view. Based on all the photos, I don't see any issue with a view. Was that the only comment?
Yeah,
from
that's
anyone
all
else?
that we
Perfect.
received.
Thank you. That's all I had.
Go ahead, sir. Alderman Woods. No, you can step up there, sir.
You can stand up there.
Alderman Woods, go ahead.
Yeah, only one. Now, I don't have any problem with it. The only thing I'm looking at, so from the bird's eye view graphic, the proposed location looks different than the one where you laid out the bricks to show you where you're going to put it. And my only concern is where you have the bricks laid out, it's further to the left, or at least in front of the pathway coming out the patio door, and that looks like the active door side. And with a bench sitting there, you'd be running out the door into, so that would be my only concern. Everything else is okay, that's a safety issue.
I can respond to that.
Go ahead.
There is a meter box a little bit outside this picture, and there is a building code requirement that they have to be 5 feet from it. So I think that's why he's probably placed it in this kind of odd middle of the patio location.
We can't give them special dispensation for
Not from the building
make it
code.
safe while we're,
Because of the water and electric, so there is a minimum building code setback that we can't vary, so.
Alderman Messina?
Yeah, going off of Alderman Artie Woods' comment, on that bird's eye view, where exactly is it being proposed?
So it would be right around there.
Okay, that's where I was confused, because I also read the concern about the neighbor, and I thought about the HOA. I don't think it's something we could restrict, but I imagine, does anybody know if the HOA has that restriction where there is a privacy wall that's like required?
There was, we did ask the petitioner to reach out to the homeowners association to get their approval in advance, so I'm sure that was done, but I'm sure he can answer the question related to, you can.
Yeah, you can go up a minute.
Hi, I'm John Jurek, 458 West Dominion. I'm only going to take about an hour. No, just kidding. So, yeah, we did get approval from the association to get the hot tub put in. And this all started in January when my wife went to see a friend who had a hot tub in Michigan and really loved it. And being a good salesperson that she is, she sold me on the idea, and sent me up here. So, anyways, yeah, so I got the smallest hot tub I could find, so that would fit within the lot, which is 5.5 feet from the building. And there's still about 4.5 feet of patio left there. And then there's bushes, and then there's about 30 feet before you reach the rough of the golf course, and then the green. So I'm happy to answer any questions.
Alderman Mike Carriel, go ahead.
Yes, I was following up on the privacy. It's a question I had. Is there any, but not for privacy purposes, but to protect the area from somebody accidentally falling into the tub, there's no fence requirement or?
The hot tub has a cover with a lock on it, so when we're not using it, it would be locked.
Is that sufficient? Okay.
That's a requirement.
Yeah,
Alderman Messina, go ahead.
I was gonna say, it's one of those things, I know, my question was, I know it met the city requirement, but was there an HOA second layer, like, maybe she was at our place in Michigan, your wife, but like, in our place in Michigan, it's a home, but like, our HOA is very tight.
Yeah.
The township could care less, but the HOA is very tight. You have it, you're putting up a privacy wall. So that's what drove me to ask that question.
Sure.
And then the cover was another mandate we had, where if you have a cover, you're good. You don't need a fence around it like you would a pool. That's not on us as a city to judge that. But it sounds like
the HOA gave a written approval.
Yeah.
And there's really no way that's going to block anyone's view. It's a small tub. It's only about 32 inches high, and it just doesn't block anything. So.
Great.
Okay, any other question? If there are no questions, then we have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Okay. Next is Community Park Master Site Plan presentation from Upland Design. Director Springer.
All right, thank you, Mr. Chairman. So we are back before you with the Upland team. They have done a lot of work since you last saw them here. Just to remind you, the last time they were here, they had brought forward 3 different concept plans. We also had the public open house. We sent out public surveys, and the consultant has compiled all that information and used it to guide the preparation of this draft final plan that the owner is going to walk you through this evening. She also will be sharing cost estimates. In the beginning, we did not confine them to a budget because we weren't sure how much this type of a project would cost. And so what they did was build to the comments that they received about what the city would like to see in the park and what the comments were and the feedback from the Streetscape Committee, the PZB previously, and the public input. So tonight, they will take you through what I would call a value engineering kind of format, where we take a look at what they've done and what those things cost. And so she will be asking for your input on various elements to include or exclude, so we can more refine the budget, and then that will allow the Upland team to finalize the final plan and the program for the park. And of course, at the end, she will bring you through kind of the next steps, and I guess that's it. I'm going to turn it over to Michelle.
Okay.
Is there a
Yeah,
button?
that's a good
Awesome.
question.
Hi, I'm Michelle. Thanks for having me again.
Are the batteries in there?
Is the power switch on the side on?
Oh, there's a power switch on the side.
Oh, so smart. Power, love it. All right, thank you. All right, so this evening, we'll just review a little bit about the program, just to remind everyone it's been a little while, and then go through those survey results, all the surveys, the people that came to the public meeting, as well as the people that answered online. And that kind of is the information, along with the meetings that we've gone to lead us to this preliminary master plan. And then, as we do go through the preliminary master plan, we will also, in front of you, is our value engineering exercise. So we'll get to that in just a few minutes. All right, so as you can see, this is our project program that we started with, and has really helped define what happens inside the park space. And just as a reminder, on the left is kind of our parking study before we started, making a good understanding of how cars can be able to be parked around the site using some existing lots, as well as potential new lots, so that many people could come and enjoy the park on special events. All right, so now on to the answers. So each of these, you'll see there's an online survey and a paper survey. So everything that has been calculated together. And in some cases, all of the answers were very similar, and a couple of times they were a little bit different. So to begin with, our A, B, and C, overwhelmingly A, that green one you can see on top, that was our A. B and C just didn't get as many votes, so that was the overall concept. And then the next one down was looking at the pathways. So we had some curvy pathways and some more rounded and bean-shaped pathways, and really everyone chose A for the most part. We have both in our online and our paper surveys. Although you'll see we had a little bit more votes on the curvilinear and C than you saw for the overall concept. But overall, the linear really won out, which is very prairie style. It really fits. All right, so then onto the amphitheater buildings. So again, A won out, although we did have a lot of Cs. And I'll remind you, C had the option for enclosing, to be able to close some doors. And so what we did is take that input and we brought that to A. So when you see A later, you'll see that we've added doors that you can close as an option, which is one of the things that people really liked about C. And then our shade, A won out overall. And again, that fits that kind of craftsman style that fits in the prairie. Everyone pretty much wanted that larger parking lot. We had a smaller percentage that wanted the smaller parking lot. So we kept the larger one in the final concepts. And then here with the playground, it wasn't quite as clear. On the online survey, A was 53%, and in the paper survey, it was 46%, with C winning out on that paper survey at 49%. And C, you can see on the bottom here, is was the train-themed playground. So overall, on the right-hand side, you can see the pictures. If we added all those votes together, we got 51% wanted A and 36% wanted C. So when you did add them all together, it still was a majority voting for that A. But not bad to look at the train one too. It is fun and it fits the theme of the site. So this is a lot of little pieces, but this is the game area, and so we kind of looked at the top 5 in both, and this is, I'm not going to read all of this, but I will show you pretty pictures, and you can see these were the ones that had the higher votes overall. So the Bago, the Foursquare, ping pong, game tables, and hopscotch and horseshoes. And then the unique design features. So those are kind of special things like the tree walk or the ornamental garden. And so on the online survey, you can see our top 4 were the ice rink, the picnic area, the formal garden, and the tree walk. And in our paper survey, the formal garden, the ice rink, the picnic area, the tree walk, and the picnic grove. So the last 2 actually tied But we were surprised to see the ice rink winning in both, like so many people wanting the ice rink. During the open house, we did have a lot of comments of other towns having ice rinks. And so the question being, do we need an ice rink? But overall, the vote said, yes, we'd like one. So here you can see the pretty pictures that go with those things. All right, so this kind of is where we got our recommendation.
Can we have a question here from?
Just really
audience?
quick, so I know to the respondents, how many people responded to the in-person and online?
We took the numbers off. They were on here, but there were so many numbers. Do you remember, Stacy, what the overall was? They were on here before. We took them off because there were so many numbers.
I thought it was a couple hundred.
Yeah, it was a fair amount. But I can get you that information. I apologize.
About a couple hundred, though, total
Yeah,
response?
it was
Okay.
a good-
I just want to know when we're talking about the numbers, how many people's input we got. Thank you.
Yeah, we had, and at the in-person, I think we had 40-some, even at the in-person. So it was a really great turnout that came to the meeting. It was this room, it was pretty full most of the evening. All right, so when we put all that together, this is really what becomes the program of how we do that final part. How does the final pieces come together? So this is the summary of what won out, but also how those things fit together. We start putting those on paper. So we shared this with staff, had a good discussion about it, and then moved forward with updating A to fit what people asked for. So you'll see it looks similar to A, it's that layout of A, but we've adjusted things for what people asked for, and including a few things that kind of pulled back on some of the landscaping. One of the things we heard was, let's not make it just a garden. Maybe that's a little bit too much from a maintenance standpoint. So in some areas we pulled back, and I can show you a few of those as we go along. We also had a comment about making it feel a little bit more urban and hip. And so we did a little bit, have a little idea in here about making a little bit more plaza, and so that there's more room for furniture and that feeling of it being a little bit more urban. So you'll see that as we go through. All right, so now this is your, in essence, it is your voting card. And we want you to fill it out as we go along tonight, and then hand it to me when we are done with the presentation. Now, if there's something you really don't want to vote on, that is fine. You don't have to circle, but my suggestion is give your best effort to circle one on each line. And these do follow the order of the presentation, so hopefully it won't be too confusing. But please stop me. All right. So I'm going to go right into, this is kind of the blow up. All right. The Amphitheater Plaza. So this got updated, and one of the things was to be able to have it enclosed and be able to pull some screens across it. So you'll see the updating on this. It just looks a little bit different than A originally. The other thing is that we tried to get a little bit more roof over the performers. That was also a request. So here you can see the performer area is a little bit deeper. We still have a plaza space out in front and some planters, but those planters have been reduced. But the indoor space has actually been enlarged just a little bit. And you can see on the left-hand side, we have a catering/green room. This is just a catering room. It's not a full kitchen, but just sort of that a caterer could bring in things. And then just one toilet room inside. The restrooms have been moved outside of this building, so they're standalone. And that also came out of the meetings. And then mechanicals on the left. And then on the right-hand side, we have some storage, a great place to put tables and chairs. And then mechanical janitorial space. The back area is a gallery, and that is where we can be able to have kind of a special indoor space that also could be heated and cooled. But then on the very front, that's where our folding partition is. And that's where they actually could close it, and you could have a yoga classroom, and you'll see inside that, in a lecture format, you could have 70 to 80 chairs. in tables and chair format, so it's like a sit-down, maybe it's a shower or a class, you'd have 50. And if you were doing yoga, Pilates, a little bit more stretched out with mats, you might have 20. So it gives you an idea of that space.
Mayor, go ahead.
Question for for the bands or whatever, how wide is that space? Is that similar size to the stage we rent? Is it bigger? Looks bigger, but, again, looks
It's 950 square feet. So I don't know exactly how wide it is, but I want to say it's about 38 feet wide.
That's
I believe our current stage is either 16 by 16 or 16 by...
okay, so it is bigger. And follow up.
Go ahead.
So I know you have it on the north side, and I've heard it both ways. On this side, definitely logistically wise, it's way better to have it on the north side of the property because bands can come in, load and unload, or if somebody's renting the space, they can have better access. If you do it on the other side, you have to have that drive aisle, right, to access, and you're gonna waste, what, 15 to 20 feet, probably at least?
Yeah.
It'd be all wasted space.
Can we do it? We can do it.
But
We can definitely-
but you're wasting 15 to 20 feet of the park always. Yeah, it's,
And the vehicles to access would need to come past the playground. We would probably want to relocate our holiday tree maybe to this side instead so that you could get that access to this area.
follow-up. So the access to the back of the building for the bands, I think I mentioned it to Stacy. Is there a door that the bands can go in and bring in their equipment, or, is it on the back side, right?
So that would be the gallery there. That's kind of a warm-up, a waiting space for them.
Yeah, but how do you get in there if you're bringing in equipment? You're loading, drums and whatever bands bring, right? I mean, is there a loading area back there?
There's not a loading dock, but you can pull the vehicle up and you're really close. I mean, you can see how close you are with the upper.
Right. No, I'm not looking for a loading dock.
Right, so
Just
you come right through the patio.
That's
and
the
in
door?
In these doors here.
Well, wouldn't you want probably a straighter shot? Because it looks like you're walking into the hallway and then another door. We don't have to design that now, but I'm just saying, I'm not a band guy. Somebody up here is, he might be able to tell us a little more about logistics, loading and unloading.
Yeah.
That
yeah,
kind
yeah.
of stuff.
Yeah, I think maybe you're right. Maybe one of those doors needs to adjust so it's more of a straight shot.
And a little wider, I would imagine.
The double doors.
Alderman Woods?
Yeah, as we're going through this program and saying yes and no here, as we're hearing now, I mean, there's a lot of questions on how we would probably change or reconfigure that building. Seems to be a lot of input. So is that something, or we're trying to get to a final plan tonight? So I'm looking at it and going, you're saying this is what we're doing, and you can pick, if you want the vanilla ice cream scoop and the strawberry scoop, and you don't want
Yeah.
the chocolate,
Yeah.
and then we're done, and here's your price, and move on. To me, there's a lot more questions, and apparently other people have questions. This is a good start, so I just don't want to go through this and then have it locked up, and next week,
You're building it?
Stacy comes and goes, here's your program, this is what we're doing.
Okay, so maybe, let me talk about process for just a minute.
So ease my anxiety.
I'm gonna try to, yes. So, the last time you saw the buildings, they were 3 different buildings. This is a movement forward in reaction to a lot of things people asked for during the community meeting, as well as staff input and board meeting input. So this one has a little more bells and whistles than we had in any of the past ones. So is it complete and ready to be thrown into construction documents? No. What our goal is tonight is to answer some really major questions, like, do we want these indoor rooms? Do we want the sliding, folding partitions? So for instance, the whole project is about $12.5 million. That's a lot of money. And we heard from staff, that's a lot. So one of our goals was to find a way to give you ideas on how we might bring that back. And to do that, this building could be, this is one of the choices, is that, and maybe we don't need all of those indoor spaces. Maybe we don't need indoor spaces. The folding partitions by themselves are, I think, 484,000. And so that's almost $500,000 for those sliding partitions. But it was something people asked for from C and we moved to A. If we took out all these rooms and just had a really nice big pavilion that didn't have rooms, you just walk in, it might still have a wall in the back for good sound, but not the rooms inside, or maybe just one room, we could save $2 to $2.4 million of this $12.5 million project. So you can see this is one of the biggest expenses. Of course, this is what you want, and you want a wonderful building, but I think there's a balance here, so we wanted to make sure we brought you those options.
Mayor?
Just a quick question. So you're talking about knocking $2 million off. Are you saying the building is $12 million alone?
The whole park.
Okay, that's what I thought, but the way you were talking, you knocked $2 million off the building. I think our priority is probably going to be more getting a pavilion. I don't know if we're going to enclose it right away. The prices naturally are just astronomical, so we're just, what is the priority? I think the pavilion's probably going to be the priority, but inside this building, you got a lot of drywall and all kinds of stuff, or are we just going to leave it brick?
We have electric, right? You have water, you have sewer, and then you have to meet the fire code. So yeah, there's a lot.
So I would love to jump in here. So she actually has the numbers for each of these items that she's going to put up on the screen for us to discuss at the end. I think showing this sheet or making you aware of it is to kind of just understand as she's going through these kind of detailed plan slides that, okay, this is what we're talking about when we get to the end. Now, in response to Alderman Wood's question, this plan, if you think of it like a comprehensive plan, this is not a final site plan. What we'll be looking for in the next month is for the City Council to approve this plan, but this is not final. So what happens is, and Michelle is going to show you some phasing over a number of years and how, we can adjust the phasing, and she'll talk about grant opportunities. But when it comes time, let's say this is the priority and we want to do this in year one, we will contract with someone who will refine this, and we'll be back in front of you saying, do you want these rooms? Do we want them bigger? Do we want them smaller? Do we want to change what they're used for? Do we want to change the size? So this is not the final plan of what the building is going to look like by any means. We'll get into that level of detail when we come forward with a consultant who's going to actually, do the architecturals for construction.
Okay.
That makes sense. Thank you, Stacy. All right. Any other questions on this?
Mayor?
So I'm looking at option 3, removing the sliding door to support rooms. That takes away $2.4 million. So what is this building cost? If you're taking away $2.5 million, what's left, $300,000?
So, and I do want to mention, we're going to get to that at the end.
Oh, okay.
But she can answer your question. It's a little over $4 million.
Yeah. Yes. And part of the building, we've line-lined everything out with very detailed cost as backup. But what we're going to show you is these big numbers for each of these items. And the thing about the building is, you kind of think you're going to build the building first, because we've heard this is a priority. So within that cost is also the stormwater for the building, and also will be the removal of concrete and asphalt that are on site right now that need to be removed. So there's a few things that will go with that cost that aren't actually buildings, but they'll be required to be done as part of it. So that make a little sense. But I just want to say this is sort of a good concept, kind of moving in the direction of what you want. But when you get into design development, as Stacy said, and you're doing construction documents, that's when you really get into the detail of, okay, we need this door to be 2 double doors, or we need it to be 1 door. And we start looking at much more detailed changes to the building. But this is getting closer, we hope.
So as far as location, this is set in stone as far as the location of the amphitheater?
No, I think, I understood that you were going to try your concerts at both ends this summer and flip them.
Mayor, go ahead.
Well, and that's why I was asking, I've heard both ways, right? So last year, we kind of moved the stage over to the west side, and cars were coming to the audience and this and that. And before we spend the money on the building, while we're doing the concert, should we try it a couple different ways just to try it, right? But you answered my question. We're going to waste 15 to 20 feet for a drive aisle all the time. It's going to has to be clear, right?
Yeah, you could use it as a pedestrian walk when you're not setting up, but it will have to be there.
Right, because bands or whoever's coming in is going to be driving down that, and they got to have a turnaround so they can go back out.
Yeah, at least a 3-point, yeah.
Right, that's why I'm like, this side is definitely better logistically.
It's very.
I don't know if it's the best spot, but I mean, if you're going to spend money, it doesn't cost anything to put a stage up for a night and you'll see the problems right away, yes or no. Logistically, I think this off the street is probably the best, just because you're not going to lose any space. And you're talking about, I don't know, it's about 1,300 people, but you've got a lot of landscape in there. And if you leave it more open, you just have more room, right? When you say 1,300, shoulder to shoulder, people sitting down, how's that figured?
So the range is used just for outdoor seating, because some people do take up more space and some less. So the lower end is, we've all spread out and we all have really big blankets taking more space than we need.
Right.
Right? And the larger number is where people are a little bit more thoughtful and keep their blanket a little smaller because it's full on that night. So that's where the range comes from.
I believe is it 25 square feet per person on the more compact and 50 square feet per person on the other end.
Alderman R.D. Woods?
Yeah, I'll preface my question with, no one up here probably wants this to happen more than I do tomorrow. I want to get this going, and I'm a newer alderman, so forgive me if this is a dumb question, but if we don't have this in the budget to even start on this for years in a typical community, how far in advance are we locking in plans, I guess?
I think you're not locking in unless you've actually started building. I feel like you have flexibility.
Okay.
And that's part of the reason we're showing a nice phasing plan, is that it really is something you can build over time.
So when you say final construction documents, those are not final construction documents that we're headed towards?
No, this is.
I know this isn't today. I'm saying you mentioned the words until we get to the final. And so the last few communities you've worked with and built parks, how many years in advance are you doing this type of presentation?
For instance, Buffalo Grove, we probably started a master plan process with them about 5 years ago, where we were doing sketches and thoughts and how could this work. And then about 2.5 years ago is when they said, okay, we're going to do this. We're going to get the funds together. And so then we really solidified what was going to happen.
And then 2.5, they're starting now, 2.5 years later?
It was about from when we first started to about 2.5 years later when they said, we have enough money to get going.
Gotcha.
And it's built now. It opened last September.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Okay. Okay, so these just give you some more 3Ds of the building. And then this is showing those sliding doors where it's closed.
Is it?
And as you can see,
Mayor?
this is.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
So the sliding glass doors faces the audience, right?
Correct.
Okay, just making sure.
Yeah, so it's not the very front of the stage.
Right.
But the middle part, all the way to the back, where the gallery is, that's where you'll have that new enclosed space. And there's our backside. And we had some good comments on just wanting to make sure that space was safe, and so we actually created a nice seat wall. All right. And then, so this is an overhead archway that previously was more in the west area, and so it got moved over here based on inputs during the whole input session, and you can really see this blow up here, how all of these pieces fit the prairie aesthetic. And now, these are the entry walkways and planting beds, and so this is the next thing on your sheet called the entry gardens. So there's these two here, and there's actually a little bit more off to the west out of the picture that are part of this. And so option 1 is keeping these entry gardens. Option 2 is removing half of them for a savings of $98,000 and some change. And then the third option is to remove all the entry gardens. And if we removed them, they would be lawn. That would be the change. All right. And then again, another great addition is this drop-off area. This is wonderful for people who might be during an event parking off-site. And so then maybe grandma needs to be dropped off here, or mom and the kids get dropped off here, and dad goes and parks at the off-site parking. So this really helps out for that. So here's our main accesses, and you can see those in red. The idea is that we would have them colored in brick, and then have next to it an 11-foot wide vehicle or tent corridor. And that's for having any kind of special event. You can bring in, we've seen in some of the car show photos, there are some food trucks that have come, but more often maybe you're having tents. And so that is that extra space. Now, and then finally, the blue are considered our secondary pathways. And so the option here is we could keep the trail loops in brick, okay? But brick is a more expensive option. So going to colored concrete, we say $488,000, or going to no color in the concrete and no brick, and that would be $637,000 savings. So it does add up. There's a fair amount of pathways. The second item that has to do with this slide is the paved vendor path. We have talked about having no vehicles in the park, that being an option. So if we went to no vehicles in the park, we don't have to build the pavement as thick. And so that does have a savings to it. And also removing that 11-foot is a large amount of pavement. And so you can see the savings there. The three choices, or the two choices in this case, are keeping the paved corridor, that 11-foot wide, or removing it at a savings of $165,941. Okay. All right, the next area is the south end, and this is where we have this nice shade shelter. Wonderful place for picnics, wonderful place for watching a band, and our base is a 24 by 44 foot shelter, and it kind of ties into the Craftsman. We can get 20 to 45 people underneath it, and we'd have catenary lighting around the perimeter. The idea with this one was to have skating on the outside edges of it, and you can see a picture in the upper right-hand corner of kind of a shelter with skating next to it, so you can kind of get that idea of. So one of the things that we came up with as an alternate to like make more plaza space is to push the shelter to the back, and you can see the alternate right here. So this would be the shelter, and then push the skating out front, like you see that. And that, in the summertime, that becomes that urban plaza where we can have outdoor furniture, you might have a fun kid event or a craft fair, and just something that might not take up the whole park, but might be something you have in one space. Also, if you have a nice lunch spot just to get outside, people like to leave the office, and this could be a wonderful spot for that in the sun or under the shade of the shelter when it's a little bit hot outside. So this one is a proposed natural ice rink, about 60 by 100. This is the lower cost as well as the lower overall long-term maintenance, because the system is really much more about having the weather being cold enough and then just being able to come out and make the ice. Yeah, making the ice still has effort to it, and keeping it clean if it snows, but it's nowhere near as expensive as having a cooled system. So we wanted to give you a second choice of a cooled system, and this is a much larger 70 by 150 shelter where we've actually put the ice underneath it. So you could pick the shelter. You can see how much bigger of a space that takes up, bringing more shade space, 90 to 180 people, so much larger. And then if we did this one, the refrigerated ice rink would be underneath. And so that would be partly built in. We would have a small storage building for the ice equipment, about 10 by 20, and you can see that off to the east. And in this, because it's refrigerated, you would have ice much longer during the winter season. It's also that it's covered helps from the sun glare that melts ice as well. So it's kind of two things happening at once. It's still a wonderful shelter to use in the other seasons of the year. So this is the one thing on your list that adds money, the shelter and the ice. The base number is the low-cost ice and the smaller shelter, while the alternate is the more expensive, larger shelter and potentially the refrigerated ice. You don't have to pick them both. And then additional picnic areas along that walkway there, which are also nice because they're next to the game area. And this is our restroom. So pulling the restroom away from the pavilion was a very strong request. And I think it makes a lot of sense to have it kind of centrally located, so people can get to it easily from the large pavilion area as well as from the playground area and the games. So there's two here. In the original cost estimate, the restroom would be brick and it would be custom and designed to match the shelter, the pavilion shelter. And that does make it more expensive. So looking at how we could save money, we could go to a prefabricated one. There's two different here. The upper right is a little bit more urban and edgy, but very easily to drop in place. And the lower left, a little bit more craftsman, ties into the shelter look. And this actually is a prefab one that gets built off-site and then dropped in place and finished. So these does have a savings, which you can see on your sheet. That the prefabricated restroom building is $185,955 less. So it saves a good chunk of money. If we didn't do the restroom at all and said we're sticking with Porta-Johns, we're saving $910,000. That includes cost of bringing in water and sewer and electric to that building. It's not just the cost of the building and the installation, it is all those utilities that go with it. All right, so this was our first choice in the playground, and you can see it doesn't look like your typical one. It's a little bit more nature oriented, and it's both for 2 to 5 year olds and 5 to 12 year olds. If we use the poured-in-place rubber surfacing, which people love, it makes it more expensive. And so we're giving an option to use the engineered wood fiber, which is just crushed wood chips, but they knot together so they're accessible, and that could save us $178,000. All right, here's all our fun games. You can see the shade structure in the upper right, and we're giving an option of removing that. That's kind of right where the circle is, you can see. We'd still have the games, but we wouldn't have the shade over it, and that saves about $72,000. And there's the rest of the games. All right, so this is the stormwater detention and pollinator area, and so what we've done on this is just shrunk that garden part of it a little bit, making it a little bit less maintenance. But what this serves really is for detention for the site, which will be required. So we do need to have it. It does have a sunken area and then some seating so that it also has a purpose and somewhere you can walk around and potentially have a pollinator sign about the plantings. So this is the formal garden, and again, this was another part of the site where we pulled back on some of the plantings. We did have perennials in these areas, and those are now grass areas, and so we just have a very kind of small box around the seating and the pergolas with the plantings. But this is a great place to have some sculpture. This is something that easily could be added later. We could build the formal garden and add the sculpture as people donate to it. But removing we have the sculpture right now in there, and that at $88,000. So not doing the sculpture saves that money. And if we didn't do the formal garden at all, that would save $492,000.
Alderman Messina?
Quick question. What happened to those, the wind chimes? Remember?
They're over, yeah.
We could relocate one of those, potentially? Maybe an option, okay.
Okay.
And this shows both shade trees and ornamental trees that are suggested to be planted to provide shade as well as structure. All right, and then here's a little bit of showing that dual use where that vehicle corridor that I talked about earlier in the red line. You can see there, the open lawn has a wonderful amphitheater seating as well as could be a U8 size soccer field. And then, of course, our shade shelter can also be an ice rink. One of the things that that was talked about was making sure the site could potentially host events. So Prairie Fest wasn't originally something that we talked about moving here. It's still maybe a question, but how could that happen? And so we're showing here the area square footage of the proposed park of 227,000 square feet, and the 2024 location was 229. So you can see how close, and I understand the 2024 location was spread out. It didn't feel cramped. So I think it's a really good comparison to kind of look at how it could be located here if you wanted to.
Alderwoman Ames?
Can you tell me, to the west of the parking lot, so that area, obviously nothing's proposed to be built there, but that's good enough for event space, so why wouldn't anything be put there?
It is in the floodplain. So if there was a 100-year flood, it's the 100-year floodplain, and it's kind of, I want to say, the more outer edge of that. So if there was a large rain event, it could have water standing. So it would, again, it's supposed to be a 100-year, although we have seen our 100-year events come more often than 100 years. So I think it's been important to us to leave that space open rather than propose something that could potentially be damaged.
Okay, follow up. All right.
So that would just be like an open grass area, not trees or anything there that we could utilize if it's dry.
Exactly.
Obviously.
It does become a good overflow spot for larger events. It could even, if it was the dry of summer, you could even park in there.
I do want to mention that this plan depicts kind of the existing situation out there. There is grass out there that's in a large open space that's surrounded by trees. So we could set up maybe, if we wanted to put a couple carnival events down there, or a couple of booths, or something temporary for the 3 or 4 days of the fest. You just can't construct anything permanent in that location that might prevent it from forming its essential duty as basically being a place where water can accomodate.
Okay, thank you.
Accumulate.
Mayor, go ahead.
If you can go back to the picture, so you're showing where we have the concerts right now, the Summerfest, I should say. So on the north side of the property over there, that would be where the pavilion is? Is that what you've outlined, kind of, or?
So where the concerts would be at the pavilion, is that what you're asking?
So right now, we have it at the ball fields, right, the Summerfest. So is that what you're trying to outline here? or,
Yes.
Yes, so that's, right, on the right-hand side is sort of where it is at the ball fields, the space that it took up in 2024, and this is a similar footprint.
Right, and because of the fireworks and everything. So before, when we had the festival here, we used to have the stage, basically, even with the pool parking lot, and the fireworks would be going off near the pool, and the carnival rides were they showing the pavilion and the canopy over there. It just, I mean, you just flip-flop it. I'm just trying to visualize how it would work. Because like I said, we have to decide before you start spending a lot of money on landscaping, all paths and all this stuff, is the festival going to come back here, or it's never going to come back here, or are you just going to do concerts and no more 4-day events? Those are decisions for later, not now, but I'm just trying to visualize it, that's all.
Right, but planning is, right, and so this main area in the center, this is, a nice, large, having two pieces at both ends, very, very useful for that. And then it's a matter of trying to feel how to lay in the carnival and the other pieces that need to fit. And then this is kind of a look at how the car show could work in this area using the parking lot with the blue line showing how we could line up cars so that you could walk. Obviously, you wouldn't be driving in once the cars are parked, but be able to walk through it. And then the red lines also are showing the potential vendor area. And then the purple lines on the far right would be additional cars that could be pulled into the grass for a car show. We did not show cars on the street on this one, but that certainly is an option as well. If the grass was mushy, you might not want to drive cars on it. Okay, and this is just an overview of the proposed landscaping areas that are outside of lawn and pavement. Our large evergreen tree in the center there that would be planted and then be able to be lit up each year and grow over time. Just some photos. So that formal garden really is the upper left hand is more of that look, so less of full beds and more of some nice ornamental trees that would look lovely in the spring and then have fall color. And then here's the 64 or 65 car parking stall along with 3 ADA spaces. So that is the whole master plan. And before I go into phasing, does anyone want to ask any other questions about the plan?
Yes, Alderman Artie Woods.
Just 3 really quick. Sliding doors, the $500,000 sliding doors, can those be added on later to that structure?
As long as
do you have to build that
planned,
structure differently to accommodate them?
As long as we planned that they could be added later, as long as we knew at the beginning. It might be more challenging, but curtain wall people are amazing, so they can do all kinds of stuff.
Second question is the bathroom situation. Who's keeping up with that? I'm assuming they're locked when we're not having events there, or are they open to the public throughout?
Each entity that takes care of restrooms does it so it fits their needs. Generally, though, if you have it open during the summertime and people are coming to the park, it's really nice to have those restrooms there. You're going to have more people coming if they know they can bring their toddler who's learning to use the bathroom, to have a space to go. So
how do other communities typically handle that? Someone stops by?
Opening them in the morning and closing at night. We also have a number of systems that actually can do that automatically, and you can look online. And so they would be unlocked in the morning and locked at night. And if you're having issues, you could certainly lock them from a distance. And then they have cameras to make sure no one's inside getting locked inside.
Cool. And last one, the ice rink, if we were to move forward with something like that, obviously it's open to the public, I'm assuming free. I don't think we're charging anything for that. Do other communities have someone running that, keeping an eye on the liability that is a giant ice rink in the middle of town, or?
No, most communities do not have someone who's there watching people, like a swimming pool you would need. But they are monitoring the ice to make sure it's staying clean and in a safe, usable manner. When it's not, say it's starting to melt, then they usually typically are putting up signs saying ice closed.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Alderman Woods, you had a question?
Yeah, a couple. So the detention piece, that's part and parcel of the parking lot and the amphitheater? Is that how we calculate it?
So we did put the parking lot in phase 2, but the pavilion and the stormwater and the walkways, accessible walkways to and from in the first phase. But you can change it any way you want. This is just a stab at getting it going.
Yeah, the question is more the stormwater piece is based on the parking lot, whether it's phase 1 or phase 2
Yes,
going in.
correct.
And the pavilion/amphitheater.
Yes.
So, knowing that, is there something else we can do? I know that somebody asked about the green blocks, eco blocks or something. Is there something else we could do to make the parking lot less formal? Not all asphalt, but then would reduce that. I'm looking at this right now and going, okay, we're gonna dice up this plan, right? We're gonna do phase 1, phase 2, phase 3, whatever it is, right? And everybody kind of up here agrees, or at least sounds like they agree that the amphitheater/pavilion is phase 1, right? And then within that, I look at this and everything's really divided up in squares or rectangles. And so I would look at it and go, okay, so we build the
So you just want to see the
theater,
phasing plan?
maybe do the screen along the tracks, the fence and the planting, right, and some of the perimeter stuff, maybe the centerpiece, and the rest of it open. And so when I mentioned it earlier, it's like I don't want to get to the end and then we got this plan. It would be nice to see that without those pieces on it, right? Because as we talk about all these pieces, it's hard to visualize all the moving pieces and how they're connected to each other.
Sure.
So when we have the conversation, as the mayor brought up, you know, that's a $4.5–5 million building, depending on what pieces you put in it. You know, we really need it probably to be closer to a $2.5 million building to make it move forward. And then what are some of those other pieces, and how realistically, how far apart are phase 1 to phase 2 and phase 3? And how are we going to be able to use that space in between that? That's why I'm saying, for me, phase 1's kind of that building, screening out the tracks, right? Outlining what this space is going to look like. And later on, we can drop in, as I'll refer to them, the boxes or cubes of some of the other pieces. Very nice design, all nice plans. I have some different opinions, but well done, I would say. You know, but, you know, so going back to the parking lot, you know, can we come up with an alternate to that, to not waste that space, that could be a U8, so that you could have, you have the flexibility to have like 2 U8 fields, and in the winter you could have the ice rink and
Oh, the ice rink.
curling or
in the
whatever,
parking lot?
right? You could have the 2 blocks of space that have multi-functions, spring, winter, spring, summer type of
Yeah,
thing.
yeah. I think the parking lot could definitely be permeable. Our client Geneva Park District takes one of their parking lots and does turn it into ice in the winter time at Wheeler Park. And so that's definitely an option instead of, you know, having that big extra pavement space. So that is something that could work. Or half the parking lot, for instance,
Right.
could be ice. That would work really well to make a lot of people. So, yeah, we didn't explore that, and I think that's a great idea. Kind of multi-use that space. We also could do permeable. We could also put storage underneath, but storage underneath costs more than storage at grade. It's just what it is.
Right, but
So-
we're gaining space, we're not losing, so
That is
I don't
true.
want to get into that whole big.
No, you're right. You're gaining space. Yeah, that's how people do it.
We will get to that and be bringing that
Yeah, I'm
forward
back-
to
I'm
you
back up to-
no, I meant in the future related to engineering. So once we, you know, go forward with the engineering plans, we'll be talking about things like permeable pavers, exactly how many acre feet is required for storage and how it can be accommodated. So again, this is kind of a, a master plan, but we'll get into those types of details as we go through the phases.
So just one last comment. I think to sum up, if that's possible. If we could, at least for me, and I think it would be helpful for everybody else, because that's the thing, that we could have, let's say, the blank canvas, because we're going to push to build the pavilion/amphitheater, right? And if we could screen things out and formalize, box out the space, right? That then we can start playing around using it and going, let's put up the fields, because we could buy bag, you could just get regular bags and play, right? Are these things working? To kind of simulate or model, much like the idea of moving that 16-foot stage around to see which is better, so you could do that from a sound perspective, but then there's the practical perspective.
I think we need to go to the next slide.
Okay. All right.
This is what he's asking
I'm
for.
gonna just move to this one for a moment because it has boxes, and I in my head I was thinking,
on the same
you want to
page
see
now.
this? All right, so this shows potential phasing. Again, it's all up to you, but phase 0 would just be engineering and architecture. And then phase 1 would be the first building portions. And you can see the kind of magenta boxes showing that phase 1, where we're getting that central pavilion, the seating areas on the north side, and we're getting a walkway all the way around it, as well as it would connect to the street. So, and then of course the stormwater facility portion of it. Then part of that, phase 1 would also be removing concrete and asphalt that don't belong there, and it would be grassing this middle, section here so that it's usable.
Mayor?
So looking at your boxes there and whatnot, so the amphitheater plaza is 4.2, you're removing the sliding door option 3 and all that, so you're looking at like 1.6 for the structure itself, right? And that's getting rid of sliding doors and support rooms. I mean, right, and it's strictly just a brick and some doors in the back or whatever.
Electric brought to it.
Right, and the water, because there's a bathroom, right?
No, the rooms would be gone, so there wouldn't be a bathroom.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay, no, and I didn't ask this before, so when you walk from the front in the pavilion, it looked like it was only 3 steps. Is it more like 4 feet high off the ground or 5 feet high?
Yeah, I want to say it's about 3.
3, and the stage is usually about 4 to 5, right? Okay. And a quick question, so do we really need to move the stage around for the Summerfest, or we just, because, just so we're clear, on the south side, if you put the pavilion where that shelter is per se, or in the corner, you're going to take 15 to 20 feet on the back side for transportation of the bands or whatever. You're losing a lot of space there. I've heard both ways. I'm just curious, do you want to?
The question to me, the answer is no, I would leave it.
Well, logistically, it's probably best over there, but I've heard both ways, so I just wanted to hear what.
So Michelle does have a recommendation from her professional perspective on which end it should be located.
Well,
Yes.
I think she shows us that.
It is true, it is there. And it is where I think it is best. I also think that the train concern of it being noisy, yes, a train can be loud. But in my experience, and we have an event venue in Plainfield that is on the railroad tracks, literally right next to it, and we have weddings there. And people are giving vows outside, and they stop the vows, and when the train goes by, which takes a minute and a half, and then they start again, and vows are quiet. Vows are not a band playing. I think you will be surprised at how little the train actually impacts when you have bands. And fun.
I think maybe to clarify what you're trying to say is that there'll be little difference in the sound if it's on the north or the south side.
Thank you, Stacy.
You're welcome. The train will obviously impact the sound of the band.
It will be there, right, but
And quick question, so you have it basically square to the, you wouldn't curve it more in the corner because, I'm just curious, your reasoning?
like, turn
Yeah,
it
just
that way.
angle it a little bit facing if you're gonna get a bigger spot, I'm just curious.
That would mess up the boxes.
Right, well, that's why I'm asking.
Yeah, I probably wouldn't.
Okay.
I also think this gives you, we've taken the widest part of the site and given you all of that lawn space
Right,
in
right,
this
okay.
design.
That's what I figured, but I just want to hear it.
It would also angle the stage, maybe not directly at the audience, like putting it in this location does.
Okay, so you can see the magenta is phase 1, and then we're suggesting phase 2 be over 2 years. So we're kind of taking the building of phase 1 over 25, 26, and then looking at potentially phase 2 is 27, 28, and that would also kind of coincide with a good grant application to the state of Illinois, with the components that are in phase 2 making a really good application and really likely to get funded. And that is kind of everything you see in the yellow boxes. So we have a nice shelter, we have the playground, we have some games, we have the restroom, we put the parking lot in as well.
Mayor?
Sorry. I'm looking at the phase 1 numbers and whatnot. And you heard, some want to get this going right away and whatnot. And so if we're just doing phase 1 or doing the stormwater and the amphitheater without the sliding doors, but, making sure it's architecturally fine to put this stuff in later, we're looking at 1.8 million or something. Is that what we're talking about? With removing the trail also, right? Right, the looping trail on the 1.14.
The trail that's in phase 1?
Yeah,
Well,
yes.
we need some of it to make it accessible. So we could remove maybe half of it?
What if we ended up putting just a sidewalk in or something?
Okay.
To make it accessible?
And we don't have the rooms or anything? No rooms, no sliding doors?
I want to hear all the options, right? So,
Okay.
So I think Michelle was planning on going through this list in more detail with you and kind of doing the numbers, but I think somebody asked a question as she started on the phasing, so do you want her to finish the phasing and then, and she also has a slide on grants, and she was going to walk through this part to try to help make the decisions and then get input from everybody and then come back with the final cost program.
Alderman Messina?
Yeah, I would say it'd be preferred if we walk through that. There's some people that would want a tractor trailer there and just put that there and call it a park, and there's others that would like the Ferrari. So maybe this is a good way for just strategically to get down where we think collectively we can get and go from there.
Okay, we're good. All right,
Okay.
awesome. Okay, so starting with the top, the amphitheater pavilion, so we have 2 choices. The smaller choice is removing those sliding doors for $484,000. And certainly if we knew you wanted those back someday, then we would just plan for that, but not build them. Now, the second option is removing the sliding doors and the support rooms. You cannot have the sliding doors without the support rooms. So, unless we did them on all 4 sides, which would be a whole nother cost to do that. So I am just, generally, we could go back and do that if you really wanted. But that's why the removing both of those is shown at the 2.4 million. So it really reduces, we don't have to bring water and sewer and all of the other pieces that go with the amphitheater.
Can you go back to the floor plan so they can take a look at what that means? And again, these are general ideas. we're not deciding specifically if every wall inside is being deleted. Perhaps, you don't build the side rooms, so there's options.
So there you can see all of the rooms. Catering room, one restroom, storage room, mechanical room, and janitor, along with the gallery.
So what would be removed?
So with the 2.4, it removes all of the interior walls. So we just have, in essence, a rear wall. So that would help with our sound. You need that rear wall to make the sound work well. But all of the other pieces would be removed.
Alderman Woods?
Yeah. So what you just said, Director, not talking specifics or moving, but now we're talking about specifics. So, which makes me want to redesign the building, again, my anxiety level. So if we need to get through the list and add and subtract so that you can finish your program, right, that's where we're headed.
Correct.
Okay, so let's do that, because then I want to have, if we're going to do this, then I want to have a broader conversation, and we'll be here all night.
Okay.
Mayor?
So you said the 2.6, you're getting rid of all those rooms per se, but you're still building the brick structure, the partition walls up in the front.
These walls, yes.
Yes.
Yes. You're getting the look of this building, the framework of the building. Yeah. Which makes me say, yes, if we knew ahead of time you might someday want to enclose them, we certainly could build it that way.
Yeah.
But this is an exercise in a large, a large budget right now. So we're just trying to move to something that really fits right from a cost standpoint. But it doesn't mean you can't change some of it later. So for tonight,
Right.
choose, do you want everything? Or would you like to see it without the sliding doors? Or would you like to see it without the walls, the inside rooms and the sliding doors?
You want the baked potato, the asparagus, and the Olive Garden?
Right. Yeah.
Michelle, are you interested in them circling their choice?
Yes, I think that would be helpful, rather than trying to vote each one, just circle, and then I will take these, and then it will help us kind of move forward.
Okay.
Because our next move is to take this to Streetscape, and we will share, they will see the same thing, but we will share the data as well.
Mayor?
So if you remove all that stuff to put it back in at a later point, I mean, plumbing and stuff needs to be done ahead of time as you're putting up the building.
That is correct. We would have to know that you want to add those rooms later.
Right, I mean, again, I believe the goal is to at least get the amphitheater up and running, and with the sliding glass door, then you can use it like the Park District uses the woods, right? The woodlands. They rent it out and whatnot.
All right, do you have any more questions on this option before I go to the next?
Go to the next.
Okay, so the next one is the entry gardens, and
It'd be quicker if I do it.
yes, oh my gosh. So the entry gardens are mostly on the east side, and these are adding some lovely plantings and
Oh,
yeah, go.
sorry.
We lost it. One more before then.
This one?
It's before. Wait, the whole list, is that what you're looking for?
Yes.
One more? You got it. There we are. Okay, so removing half the gardens, kind of get a little bit of your cake, but not the whole cake. $98,000 savings, or removing all the entry gardens, $196,000. Again, this is a wonderful, beautiful entry feature, and at the same time is something that you could remove lawn and add it later. So if you love it, keep it in, and we just phase it late. But if you're like, you know what, I don't know that we ever really want those, then please put your option as removing them.
Well, Alderman Messina?
Real quick, is that, so you said facing Wooddale Road, so that east?
Yes. The majority of them are on the east side. Oh, wait,
Isn't that sign, that overhead?
yeah, it's where the pretty sign, the sign is. You can see the gardens. But you can see in here too. Just stop at one of them. Okay. Right, those are the good. Up there and there. And then we have a little bit over on the west side too, a little bit by the parking lot. But the majority of them are right here along Wooddale Road.
I don't see it.
It's this darker green area.
Right. It had the arch with the columns on both sides.
So unless I'm nuts, isn't the pavilion closest to Wooddale Road, is it not?
Closer to tracks.
Yeah, up there. So where you guys are all putting your mouse is all further inward, more further west. So right there where the mouse is that what you're talking about?
Yes.
Yes, east,
Yeah.
because this is north.
So east, okay, so just,
It's an entry sequence experience.
okay.
Maybe I can find that slide that circles them here.
Yeah. Yep, those are the circles. Yep.
Got it.
And then, any other questions about the entry gardens? All right, the next is the trail loop paths. And so those loop paths are, right now, the main pathways, they are in brick. So that's option one. Option two being the brick goes away and we do colored concrete. Or option three, just standard concrete.
So, Michelle, are you saying this would just become concrete and wider? So this would be just a wide concrete path?
Yeah, we would still have jointing to define the vehicle / vendor area. So we use jointing in the design, but the concrete, that, option three is no color, so all the same. And then the next one is the 11-foot wide vendor drive. So if we take that out, then vendors we could still put pop-up tents in the, next to the walkway, and people can use the walkway and come to the vendor. And so that is a very typical way of doing pop-ups. The only thing, it doesn't work very well if it's raining or if you had soggy days before the event. So that is our 11-foot wide, taking that out. That was basically concrete. It wasn't colored concrete. It didn't have any fancy finishes to it.
Do you want them to be circling as you cover these?
Yes, you guys are circling, are you guys?
As we're going through.
You guys have circled all yours?
Yeah.
Wow.
I keep crossing mine out and changing my, so this is helpful. I'm just gonna need a new sheet.
Changing your, we might have a new sheet. Do you need one?
Okay.
All right, so then the shade shelter and seating. If we want to go to that larger size shelter, this is one of two that would add money to it. So going to that larger size shelter, the 70 by 150, that adds $850,000. The option three is keeping that smaller size shelter, the 24 by 44, but using this alternate location. So if you like the alternate location of this smaller size shelter, then choose option three.
So Michelle, the first option is with the building in the middle and building in the middle with concrete all the way around it. The next option is more like the picture with the building at the back and the concrete all in front.
That is option three, correct.
Gotcha.
Option one on top. And then the middle option is that larger size shelter that would cover all of the ice. And then complementary to that is our winter ice options, the 60 by 100 natural ice rink, which is as shown, or adding the actual refrigeration system and and then we had the additional $478,000.
Mayor?
I mean, you can technically have the shelter without the ice rink, and the ice rink could be done later. I know you mentioned something about somebody used their parking lot or something at some point.
That's correct.
Okay.
Okay. So, next is our restroom building. And so we have, the option 1 is the restroom building would match the pavilion. It would be brick and prairie style and custom designed for this site and this project. That is option 1. Option 2 is going with a prefabricated restroom building, which you saw a couple options for that. We would still have at least 4 units, and so that it would be good for events that are medium to small size, and very larger events would probably still bring in some porta johns. And then finally, the last one is just remove the restroom altogether.
Sorry, I thought that would be easier, but it's
Having
not.
fun over there, Stacy, aren't you?
I am.
Does anyone need to see the restrooms again? You guys are good. Okay. All right, so the next one's a playground. I'm sure you've all seen Port and Place surfacing. It's lovely, but there's quite a bit of savings to that, to using the engineered wood 5R, and that is still an accessible and safe surface to use. It does need to be replenished. That's probably the biggest difference. It does have a little bit more maintenance. So that's $178,000 in savings. And then we also put in an option that you could look for a Kaboom grant, which who doesn't want grants? I always think that's a good option, an easy one to circle. Or you could do a build event where your community comes together and does the build. So you still would buy the equipment, but then you would have a certified installer on site while it's being built to make sure it's safe and meets all the codes, but your community would help out. Stirring concrete, pouring concrete, bringing in the 5R. So that's a great way to save some money. And then we have our game area. Oh wait, go back one. There's our shade off to the right there. And that is a nice savings of $72,000 if we remove the shade area there.
Alderman Messina?
Question on that. So obviously it looks awesome, but how realistic is it for this climate?
They're up in the Chicagoland area.
Maybe we have to budget to get it replaced X number every...
About 10 years.
10 years, okay.
Mm-hmm. Yep, that's right. Sometimes longer, but 10 years is about what we're seeing.
Okay, thank you.
If they're left up year-round. Okay. And then the formal garden area, again, 3 choices. 1, keeping it as is. Second is removing the sculptures, a savings of $88,000. And the final one is remove the formal garden altogether, which does leave that open, could leave open lawn space for other uses.
Am I going in the right direction? I'm going towards the end. Yep,
Right
there we go.
Yep, that was it. There. All the sculptures. And then the other one that we added to the list is having the city removal of the existing pavement. We have $174,000 for removing the pavement, which we are expecting that there are some concrete footings, some building footings in the site as well. That is included in that number. And if the city staff did some of that or all of that, there would obviously be a savings. I don't know if that's something you all want to take on, but I think it is at least worth looking at because it's a chunk of money.
Chairman.
Alderman Messina, go ahead.
That's a quick question on that too. So it sounds amazing, it sounds like a no-brainer, but does that, it's kind of like having the police, you know, is there overtime involved in that? Are we spending double that in overtime?
Yeah, I haven't run any numbers or anything like that, but I think there would be some overtime involved. I would just throw all of our HEOs at it, but I think it is something that we could handle in-house.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Okay, just to talk just a little bit more about phasing, finish up here, is that, again, that phase 2 would be looking at a grant to partially fund some of that, and you can see that $600,000, that's the max grant. And then phase 3 is what we like to say, some of the zhuzh in the park and some of the extra plantings, a little bit more in the formal garden, and finishing up the loop path. So that phase 3, we at one point looked at 4 phases, but it really, having 4 phases because you're pushing out years keeps pushing up that cost, because we do have inflation that is in all of these numbers. So as you go out, the numbers we're seeing today, we have added inflation to those. So that gives you a little idea. One other grant, the OSLID grant, which is the $600,000 grant shown in here, I would say is highly likely grant. There are definitely other grants that could support. The park grant is a wonderful grant. It provides 75% of the cost for a recreation type building. So your amphitheater would be great. Even the restrooms could be, as long as they're built with something else recreation based, could also fit into that grant. The downside is that the state legislators have to sell bonds for that grant to happen. And this year they did not sell bonds, and it's hard. It usually happens every 2 to 3 years that we see that come out. It is competitive. The OSLID grant has $54 million available this year in that grant, which is a really great grant program, where the park grant typically only has about $25 million. So it's a little bit, it's more competitive is my point. The last one is a DECO line item grant. We are working with many agencies that are getting DECO line item grants. So they're working with their state legislators, they're bringing an important special project to them and asking for some state assistance. And typically, legislators have some funds to be able to put towards fund projects. We have one project in Libertyville area and in Green Oaks, and they have a $1.5 million line item grant this year for a project. So what's important, or what I have been told, is that you need to have a plan, you need to have a solid cost estimate, you need to have community support. And those are the things that help get a DECO line item grant. I think this is a perfect project for this, because you have those things all going for you. So that will take, though, some talking and meeting with legislators. It's not a form you fill out, it's a lunch and a breakfast and some other things. So, all right, Stacy, anything else you would like to see me cover?
No.
Okay, so this is what, for future planning, so we don't need to vote on this? This is just for informational, correct?
Need to hand in the worksheet.
Okay. Thank you very much.
I did want to talk a little bit about next steps. And as you can see here, we are targeting to go to the Streetscape Committee on April 7th, and then back to this group on the 24th. So what the Upland team will be doing is incorporating your feedback this evening to put together kind of a final program. Again, it's a master plan. It can be adjusted in the future, and we will get into those details of what exactly the footprint and room location is, and whether we want to phase it in, when we want to do it. All of those details will be brought to you again when it's time to move forward with the design contracts for those.
Okay. Thank you very much. And that concludes the presentation, correct? Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Items to consider at future meetings, we have the water tower special use coming up April 10th. And then also we have at 650 North Wooddale Road, text amendment and special use coming up May 8th. And last, we have the Wooddale Park District text amendments, rezoning and lot consolidation, and that's also coming up May 8th. Do we have any other items to consider at future meetings? If we do not, then I'll make a motion to adjourn. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. We're adjourned. Thank you.
I'll call to order the Public Health, Safety, Judiciary, and Ethics Committee. Let the minute taker note that the same committee members are present. And I'll make a motion to approve the January 23, 2025 committee minutes for this Public Health, Safety, Judiciary, and Ethics Committee. Have a second? Second. Any changes, adjustments, corrections? There being none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carries. Two reports and recommendations. The first is a resolution seeking to approve an intergovernmental agreement between the City of Wooddale and the Village of Addison for specific police services. I'll make a motion. Any questions?
Well, the chief's got a presentation. Where's the slideshow?
Any comments?
No.
None? Roll call, please.
Alderman Artwoods?
Yes.
Alderman Currielli?
Yes.
Alderman Messina?
Yes.
Alderman Sismarski? Alderwoman Ames?
Yes.
Alderman Artie Woods?
Yes.
And Alderman Catalano.
And that passes. So the second item is a request for an additional Class AR liquor license. I'll make that motion.
Second.
Any questions, comments? Alderman Sismarski?
It's right next door to Woody's, the speakeasy.
Between Woody's and Dairy Queen. That was it? Any other questions? We need a roll call or voice? Roll call, please.
Alderman Artwoods?
Yes.
Alderman Currielli?
Yes.
Alderman Messina?
Yes.
Alderman Sismarski?
Yes.
Alderwoman Ames?
Yes.
Alderman Artie Woods?
Yes.
That passes. That was easy. Items to be considered at future meetings, none listed here. Anybody want to add something? Alderman Woods? No? I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? We're adjourned. Thank you.
All right, I'd like to call to order the Public Works Committee meeting. Let the minute taker note that the same elected officials and staff are present. First, I'll make a motion to approve the minutes from the meeting on March 13th, 2025. Any comments, corrections, concerns? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That passes. Report and recommendation. First, an approval of an agreement between the City of Wooddale and John Neary Construction Company Incorporated for the Addison Road Water Main Replacement Project in an amount not to exceed $1,465,254. That is my motion.
Second.
Director Lane.
Thank you, Chairman. Replacement of water main along Addison Road from Irving Park to Potter Street. Construction would start after Memorial Day, and if you recall, this is the project that we received some congressional funding for in the amount of about $959,000.
There's no issue with any of the funding from that?
Nope.
Everything's on
That's
schedule?
been approved, and we're just waiting. It's on a reimbursement basis, so we'll pay the contractor, and the IEPA will reimburse us.
Okay. Alderman Woods?
Yeah, just so there's one or two water hookups on Addison Road. Just want to make sure they're still on the radar to take
Yeah, there's
care of
actually
those,
about 7 parcels, I think, that don't have an existing water service, and all of those will get an 1.5-inch service to a B-box.
And so, correct me if I'm wrong, we're going to just take it to the B-box and leave it there, and it's still up to the resident or the
Correct.
homeowner to go. Can we get them a price maybe from the contractor?
Yeah, that's definitely something we could ask about, and the city also does have the incentive program, where if you're connecting to water, you get reimbursed, I think it's up to $5,000 for water and sewer to connect your property to city water.
Yeah, since he's on site, he could probably do it, and they could still avail themselves of the $5,000 to help pay, but.
Right.
maybe-
Yeah, that's absolutely something we can look at.
Thank you.
Mayor, please. Did you say?
That was the exact same question.
Alderman Sismarski?
Timeline to start?
So we're going to start after Memorial Day. They'll probably start at the intersection at Irving Park Road and work their way to the south. So the section under Irving Park will have to be directionally drilled, and then it'll probably be a good 3 months of construction after that.
How far down?
It goes all the way to Potter Street, and it's in the westernmost southbound lane of Addison Road. So it'll be down to one lane for a little while.
Mayor?
So you said the 7 homes. One of them, if I remember right, was on the west side of the street. The water main's going to be on the east side of the street. I know it was a big problem before, but we're going to make sure that one's going to also be handled, correct?
Correct, yeah, the water main's on the west side of the road, and then all the service lines will be drilled, directionally drilled underneath the street to a B-box in front of the property.
The water main's on the west side of it? I thought it was going to be on the east side of Addison Road.
Westernmost southbound lane.
Oh, okay.
Alderman Catalano?
Is there going to be a lot of grass movement or parkway and lawn?
Be just a little bit of disturbance when we're putting in B-boxes and fire hydrants, but majority of the work is within the pavement.
Okay, so, but if they have to, take care of the grass, we're not going to have issues like we've had in the past?
Certainly hope not.
Okay.
We'll stay on top of that.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Roll call, please.
Alderman Art Woods?
Yes.
Alderman Currielli?
Yes.
Alderman Messina?
Yes.
Alderman Sismarski?
Yes.
Alderwoman Ames?
Yes.
Alderman Artie Woods?
Yes.
And Alderman Catalano?
Yes.
And that passes. Next, approval of a professional services agreement between the City of Wooddale and RJN Group for the Addison Road Water Main Replacement Construction Engineering Services in an amount not to exceed $155,000. That is my motion.
Second?
Any comments on this?
RJ Group designed it. This is for the construction engineering services, and there's a little bit added scope due to the grant. There's some reporting and, standards that we need to adhere to from the IEPA.
Alderman Ames?
Just to make sure, so will the engineering group or the city notify all the residents who they can contact if there's questions during the project? Concerns about any access to driveways or anything like that? They'll have a contact?
Yeah, so we'll issue an initial letter to all the residents from the city. The contractor will be responsible for coordinating, direct impacts like a driveway closure with the resident. There's going to be impacts to mail delivery and garbage that we're going to have to work out with the contractor to make sure that those services aren't interrupted as well throughout construction. So there'll be a lot of coordination.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions on this one? Roll call, please.
Alderman Art Woods?
Yes.
Alderman Currielli?
Yes.
Alderman Messina?
Yes.
Alderman Sismarski?
Yes.
Alderwoman Ames?
Yes.
Alderman Artie Woods?
Yes.
And Alderman Catalano?
Yes.
And that passes. Items to be considered at future meetings: Clark Agreement, I&I, pavement patching, tree ordinance, RJN fiscal year 26 engineering services, all on April 10th. Anyone have anything else they'd like to add? Alderman Sismarski?
If any of you voted for that ice rink, I hope you're requisitioning a Zamboni and learn how to drive it, right?
That'll probably be a union job, but I'll volunteer if I'm able to.
Anyone else? Okay, with that, I'll make a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? We're adjourned.